You know, the first home savings account, the FHSA, is such a game changer for anyone saving for a home. But what happens if the unthinkable occurs? It's a tough topic for sure, but it's one we absolutely need to talk about.
Look, it's a scenario nobody wants to even think about, but being prepared is so important. So what actually happens to all that money you've worked so hard to save if the account holder passes away before they get a chance to buy their home? Let's dive in.
Okay, so the very first thing that happens, and I mean immediately upon death, is that the account gets frozen. This is a really crucial first step, so let's unpack what that actually means. And when I say activity stops, I mean everything. No more contributions can go in, no transfers can go out, no withdrawals. The account is basically put on pause, just waiting for the whole legal process to play out.
Now, this frozen state, it's not forever, of course. This brings us to a super important term you need to know, the exempt period. You can think of this as a kind of grace period, where the account's earnings can continue to grow, tax-sheltered, while everyone gets their ducks in a row.
And what's really interesting here is the timeline. The exempt period isn't just 1 year. It actually ends on December 31st of the year after the year of death. So let's say someone passes away in January of 2025. That means the family has until the very end of 2026 to get everything sorted. That's a pretty generous window, which is really helpful.
All right, so the account is frozen, and we have our timeline set by the exempt period. The next big question is, who gets the money? I mean, this is what everyone wants to know, right? It's the most pressing question for the family. And thankfully, the rules are very clear. It's not left up to chance. There's a very specific process to figure out who the rightful heir is.
It all follows a strict order of operations, kind of like a pecking order. First, you look at the beneficiary designation made right in the FHSA contract with the bank. If that's blank, then you move on to check the deceased person's will. And if you strike out on both of those, then the provincial or territorial laws on succession kick in to make the final call.
Now, before we go any further, there's a key legal term we've got to nail down, survivor. This doesn't just mean any family member who survived. In this context, it specifically and only refers to the spouse or common law partner. And trust me, this distinction is absolutely critical for everything that comes next.
This table breaks it down perfectly. The cleanest option, by far, is naming a spouse as a successor holder. They literally just take over the account. If they're named just a beneficiary, they still have some great tax-deferred options. But look what happens if the beneficiary is a non-spouse, like a child or a sibling. That payout becomes taxable income to them. And if there's no designation at all, it all just goes to the estate, which can get complicated. So, let's dig a little deeper into that first path, the successor holder, because it's often the cleanest and most straightforward way to handle things.
So here's the absolute key. If you're the surviving spouse and you've been designated as the successor holder, you don't just inherit the money, you inherit the account itself. You become the new holder right away as soon as your partner passes.
But taking over the account isn't the end of the story. Okay, so now you're the new holder. What can you actually do with it? You've got some pretty important decisions to make.
You've basically got 3 main roads you can go down. First, you can just keep the FHSA as your own and continue saving in it. Second, you can do a tax-free rollover of the funds into your own RRSP or RIFF. Or third, you can just withdraw the cash, but, and this is a big but, that withdrawal is going to be taxed as income.
Okay, a little heads up here. If you're thinking about option 2 or 3, the transfer or the withdrawal, there are some important conditions. You have to get it done before that exempt period ends. And, crucially, you can't make any new contributions to the account or use it to buy a home. If you do either of those things, you're basically signaling that you're treating it as your own FHSA, and the rules change.
And for anyone actually doing this, the piece of paper you're going to be looking for to make that tax-deferred transfer to an RRSP or RIF is Form RC-722. Your financial institution might have its own version of it, but this is the official form that makes it all happen.
All right, we have walked through the main scenarios. Let's just wrap this up with a couple of final but very important details about, you guessed it, taxes. So what happens if, and this can get a little tricky, what if the person who passed away had actually put too much money in their FHSA? If they had what's called an excess FHSA amount when they died, well, that triggers a penalty.
And that penalty is a 1% tax per month on that excess amount. The person legally handling the estate is responsible for filing a special return and paying that tax. It's one of those small details that can cause big headaches if you miss it.
So after all of this, it really boils down to one simple, powerful thing that you can do right now. This isn't just about knowing the rules, it's about taking action. So the question I'll leave you with is this: is your FHSA's beneficiary designation up to date? Because a few minutes of your time today could literally save the people you love months of stress and uncertainty down the road.